All right. This is in a different volume, Tov Shin. The other one we couldn't pursue. This hopefully will be good for us. Okay? Vayemer Hashem al Avram, Lech lecho mi'artzecho mimei ladetecho mibeis avicho el haaretz asher areko. So, this is the first time that it mentions in the Torah that Hashem spoke to Avram, and he said to him that he should leave, he should go away, lecho, for your sake, from your land and your birthplace and the house of your father, to the land that I will show you. We need to understand Mahu Inyan, what is the significance of Arichas Haloshin, of this long description, Be'efen Halichosoi Shel Avram Avinu Olav Hasholem, in the manner that Avram Avinu Olav Hasholem had to go El Ha'ores, to the land Asher Yarehu Avaya, that Hashem will show you. In other words, the posuk, this is not just plain descriptive words. Avram has to go to the land that Hashem will show him, and the Torah describes what does he have to, how does he get there, how does he accomplish this going. He has to go mi'artzecho, mi'beladetecho, mi'beis avicho. He has to go through all of these stages, and then he'll come to the land that will show him. What is the significance of that? The Lecha, for seemingly Have Leimar, he should have said Bikitzur, briefly, straight out. Lech, you should go and let us plainly go to the land such and such. And what is necessary, what's significant about the details, from which place he is going, where he is living. The main thing is he should end up in the land that Hashem will show you. That's the first question. What is the long description of what he is leaving behind? And what is the intent? B'tevas lecho. Lecha. Lecha means to you. Go to you. What is meant by this word lecha? Sho'emer lech lecha. V'alei ha'kavono b'pshitus. Since that, in simple sense, what is the intent over here? Ma'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what is Hashem saying to Avram? She'Avram Avinu Olav Hasholem Yelech El Ha'oretz Asher Yarehu Hashem Yisborech. What is the intent of this posuk? That Avram should go to the land that Hashem will show him. Im Kain, and thus, Mahu Hatzivui Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha means go to yourself. Lech Lecha. He's not telling him to go to himself, he's telling him to go to the land that he'll show him. The Oz, and thus, have shtei halichas. There are two goings. He's going to two places. Halicha Rishayna. The first halicha is who El Lecha Ha'amur Bakosuf. Lecha, go to yourself. This is the first halicha. V'halicha Shniya, and the second walk and going who El Ha'aretz Asher Yarehu Hashem Yisborech. It is to the land that Hashem will show you. And And thus we need to understand Mahu Inyan Shnei Halichei Seilu. What is the inyan of these two halichos, of these two goings?
How is two halichos?
Lech Lecha, go Lecha. This is one direction, one destination. You know what destination means? And then there's another destination. Ha'aretz asher ha'areka. There are two destinations here.
It's not fit about the. I don't know about the pastors. Lech, you yourself go to the this and this and this.
So how is that different than saying Lech el ha'aretz asher ha'areka? I know there is such an expression, go unto yourself. But the simple expression of go unto yourself also means go for your sake. Something has to do with you. Go to you. Go, in other words, for your sake, go. And in this pasuk, it clearly, it has to have significance. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Lech lecha.
I understand it's Russian, it's not Meduyak, like it's an additional word, but why how it's Shtei Halichos? Where's the Shtei Halichos?
Lecha translates to you, right? Lamed is the direction, and Cha is the destination, right? El Ha'aretz is the same thing. El is the direction, and Ha'aretz is the destination. So there's two destinations.
So Lech Lecha, it's one, and Lech.
El Ha'aretz asher ha'areka. All right. So we're going to go into a whole discussion. I'm going to give you a little bit of a, so to speak, of a jump so that you will see the continuity. The principle of Lech Lecha means go to you, meaning go back to what your real source, what your neshama is. Rise up to the madrega that you belong to, where your source is. And this is what we're going to start discussing. V'hinei, Isa bisforim. It's found in Sforim. The Sheresh Kol HaNeshomes, that the source of all Neshomes, Hu Meyoilam Ho'achdus, is from the world that's called the world of Achdus. Achdus means unity. And principally it means the world where Hashem's unity is fully recognized. Not like in our world, but we also understand Hashem is one. But that is because we understand Hashem is one, but in the world itself, we don't see the unity. We see all kinds of different things. And everything seems to be going in its own direction. And it is a whole effort to understand how everything really is coordinated. But the Neshomas come from a world of Achdus, that there is also, that they only recognize the principle of unity. Pirush Olam Ho'achdus. What does Olam Ho'achdus mean? Hu Olam Ho'atzilus. It is the world of Atzilus. Now, the meaning that Shoirash Anshomis is from Elam Ha'achdus means that the neshama only recognizes full unity. The neshama that is not like a person. A person can have two opposite desires. I want to go here, and I also want to go here. And I have to figure out which is the right way, which way I should go. And they can be contradictory. Because a person is faced with really two contradictory desires. He sees the neshama nefesh olekis, as you learn in Tanya. The godly soul sees godliness, and the animal soul sees worldliness. And he's torn. And what is worldliness? Worldliness is multiplicity. A lot. From a worldly perspective, the way a person's thought process goes. Say, for instance, there is a common thing today that people speak about overeating. A person eats too much. A person eating is a natural thing. A person has to eat because he's hungry and it's healthy for him, he has to eat. How does it come to eat too much? It is that when his reason for eating is not focused on the reason for eating. There are other reasons. Oh, it looks good. I taste it. Completely different reason than the essential reason for eating. So he completely sort of says, veers off, goes away from the essence, from the real reason. And he can do things that don't make any sense because he's not in Olam Ha'achdus. The neshama cannot get confused. Whatever the neshama wants, it is based on the principle of what the neshama is. Olam Ha'achdus. Where the truth is not only obvious, but that is what permeates the whole neshama. He would never want something that does not support, that does not strengthen and connect it to its truth. This is the neshama. The neshama itself is never confused. It always knows exactly what it wants. Okay. Now the Rebbe says, which is the Olam Ha'achdus? What kind of world is this? And the reason we need to explain Olam Ha'achdus is because world and Achdus, the two terms, world and Achdus, are contradictory. The word world means multiplicity. If it's only one thing, it's not a world. Okay, we understand that, right? That's the concept of a world. And then you say, Olam Ha'achdus. It's a world of unity. How is that? So the Rebbe explains that Olam Ha'achdus means Olam Ha'atzilus. And what's special about Olam Ha'atzilus that it has that title? This is what we're going to explain.
Why it's Olam, it's multiplicity?
basically, this is the meaning of the word olam, the world. If you want to focus in on the concept, you could readily see let's say simple principles. Simple principles, honesty, right? Honesty is something which is inherent in a person's soul. You have to be honest, which means you have to say the truth. How does honesty express itself? Where does a person practice honesty? To himself, of course he's honest. When is honesty challenged? When does he practice honesty? When he is interacting with someone else. Then there's no one to interact with, there's no challenge to honesty. And interacting with the other person, he is either going to be honest, he's going to tell him the truth, or he's not going to tell him the truth. And then that expands. He's interacting with many people. And these other people are interacting among themselves. So whose side are you going to take? This is where honesty is being tested in world. That's what world is. World means that the principle is being acted on. Like I say, go into the world. The principle itself is a pure principle. Like every person, there's a common saying, a person says, that he on his own, every person on his own wants to be best and the purest and most honest. But this other person has enticed me because he lied to me, so that's why I went and I lied to somebody else. You go into a world. And that's possible only when there's multiplicity. The meaning of world is interaction. And in interaction you have two things. You have the action and you have the principle by which you're acting. That's meant world. So it says, and what's special in Atzilus? The Be'atzilus, because in Atzilus, Ihu v'chayoi hichad, Ihu v'garmoi hichad. Did you ever come across these words? You learned it in Tanya? Excuse me? The Rebbe explains what that is. Before we go to the explanation, I just want to say Ihu means him. Him refers to Hashem himself. The way Hashem is unto himself, not expressing himself, but the way Hashem is to himself. That's meant Ihu. And then from Ihu come two levels, Chayohi and Garmohi. And this is what he says. The chayohi, the word chayohi means his life, the life that comes from him. Heim oiros, that refers to the oiros. I'll explain in a moment. The garmoihi means the bones. Heim hakeli, the life and the bones of the body and soul, the keli. For Omar, and for this, he says, Ihu v'chayehi chad v'ihu v'garmehi chad. That he unites with the oiros and he unites with the kelim. The kshem the chayohi, where just as the chayohi the oiros, shehem ha'oiros, which are the oiros, mis'ardim bi'ihu, unite with ihu, with him himself. Shehu ho'atzmus baruhu mamosh, ihu, which is the atzmus baruhu itself, kain. Likewise, ihu ve'garmohi chad, he and his garmohi and the kelim are also one, which means in a kain garmohi sheim akelim, that likewise the garmohi which has the kelim misardim beho oiros, unite with the oiros. The union of oiros and kelim, we learned already. I just want to give us a little bit of a handle on it so we can understand better what we're going to learn. In principle, the oiros and kelim, oiros, just like the light from the sun. The light from the sun, in essence, the light from the sun is really part of the sun. It's not a separate thing from the sun. You cannot separate it. And what does the light represent? The light represents the sun itself. It is not something that the light of the sun tells you that there is such a thing as light. That's what the light of the sun tells you. There's such a thing as light. When this light comes to the world and hits an object, then you can see the object. But that's when it becomes already attached to something else. But the pure light, as it comes from the sun, is not attached to anything. It doesn't show you anything. It only tells you there is such a thing as light. Like if you look up into daytime, into the light, into the space, you don't see anything. What do you see? It's day. That's what light is. Light tells you such a thing as light exists. When this light is used to see an object, that's when it becomes already connected to. When it's used for specific, that's when it becomes a keli, a light in a keli, when it's attached to something else. What is a keli? Keli means a means by which you can use the light. That's what a keli. The pure light we can't use. But when the light um, can be translated in showing you colors and showing you objects, that's when the light can be used. You with me? I explained in the past many times the difference between candlelight and sunlight. Remember that? And what is the difference?
It's two different light because the sunlight is coming from the mockers, the mitzvahs of the day. Like when the sun shines, we have different mitzvahs, different heights, and it's coming from the light, his essence in the light. But the candle, he's coming from the darkness. It's like it transforms the darkness to the light. It's not.
Fine. So without going any further, so here's the point. The light of the sun is not a light that makes you see like the candlelight. It just shows you light. Light for its own sake. What's light in our world? Nothing. Light in our world is only if the light makes you see things. That's when it becomes a mitzias by us. But light per se, we don't have a light. Light is in a different category. So the light of the sun per se shows you light. When does the light become useful, functioning? When it is an object. That's when it becomes useful. This is called already a light in a keli.
And the macro itself is not a...
What?
The macro, the shortage of the light is not itself an object.
The shortage of the light is what?
It's not itself an object.
An
object by itself.
An object?
Yeah.
Well, in the physical world, yes, because this is only a moshel to the true light. But even the object of the sun, like the object, the sun, what is the object of the sun? It is light. So there's no other things except of light. You're right, though, that in the physical world, it has its tangibility. But this is what the Rebbe created, that we should be able to have in Gashmis a moshel to something which is completely in a different world.
So the keli is the thing which they revealed the light, and this part we can use.
Mm-hmm. Right. So keli is already a mitzias. Keli takes the light and gives it a function, gives it a form, and thereby it can be used. So we say that in Olam that there are different levels of oiris and keli. In Atzilus we say that in Atzilus the that the oiris are completely pure, that they are completely one with their source. And the kelim are completely pure, that they are one with their source, with the light. What this means, in principle, we're going to learn now,
When they're one, it means united or the same?
it means united. and the cup muscle, and you understand, this cup holds water. But the cup and the water are two different entities, completely. The cup is a means by which you hold the water. But let's say you take water and you freeze it. Normally water you can't carry. You can't grab hold of water. But let's say you freeze it. And now you can cut up a piece of ice and hold it. There, the keli and the water are one. Except the keli is where the water becomes different than normal. Normally the water flows. And here the water becomes formed. Once it's formed, then you can grab hold of water. But the keli is one thing, the keli itself is water. Except it is when water becomes a little harder, a little more coarse. What coarse means? More physical, more tangible. Normally water, there's nothing to hold on. It's a fine
material. Like a light that gets some kind of the shape.
Right, it's something which can be shaped.
So the shape is like the keli, but it's actually a light.
Right, it becomes so tangible that it can be shaped.
But when he should shape, he loses qualities.
No, he doesn't.
It's not lower light. It's not become.
It's lower. Yeah, it is. That's what I'm saying. It's lower, but it is still water. It's frozen water, but it's still water. It's not a separate thing.
So that would be Atzilus.
This would be like a muscle to the concept of the keli being straight from the light itself. But the light goes down a notch and becomes a tangible. What are you tasting? What are you testing? What are you feeling? Light. Not something else. But this light is now tangible. What does it mean it's tangible? Normally light cannot be separated from the source. Like normally water is in the river, and you can't separate from the river unless you take a keli. But on its own, it flows, right? It's in its source. But once it freezes, you can take it and separate from the source. So that means that this water now does not represent the source of the water. It represents water per se. Normally when you say there's a river, so we say, oh, there is a river, there has to be a spring from where the river comes from. But when it's frozen, then you kind of separate it from the spring, from the source. And you say, well, there's just water. Yeah, I'll take a piece of water and take it out. So this is all what's called a moshel. You know, the moshel means to grasp the idea when you say that in Atzilus there is chayehi v'garmei. But we say that in Atzilus chayehi v'garmei, the oiros and the kelim are all godly. So the oiros represent not a separate thing but godness itself, and the kelim represent the oiros. They're not a separate thing. And this is why it's called Olam Ha'achdus. What does Achdus mean? That even though there are Oiros and Kelim, but throughout the Oiros and the Kelim, you see essentially the essence. You see the godliness that flows through them. Not like this Keli, that you look at the Keli, you don't know what's inside. It's a separate thing completely.
in Atzilus, spheres, Chokhmah, Bina, Das. It's like each one have different light and different keli, or it's
Yes. Different light and different keli. That's why it's called the oilam, a world, because there are many different lights. 10 different lights and 10 different keli. That's why it's called a world. But in that world, there is the source and the essence, it permeates the whole Metzias.
all the 10 lights they see, they come from the one point, from the one.
They represent the same thing, right? So this is a preliminary way of talking about it. We'll develop it as we go through, okay? Omikol Mokoim, you have the place? Huh? Omikol Mokoim. So even though there is complete unity between the Oiros and the Atzmos, and between the Kelim and the Oiros, nevertheless, still, Omar, Beis Pe'omim Chad. We say twice the word Chad. Why? Because the Einei Doima, because it's not equal. Yichud HaKelim B'Ha'oiros, the way the Kelim unite with the Oiros is not the same kind of unity. LeYichud HaOiros Be'atzmos. It's not the same unity as the Oiros uniting with the Atzmos. V'tam HaDover, and the reason why is it that the Yichud HaOiros and the Yichud HaKelim is not the same type of Yichud? Lefi, it is because the Oiros v'Kelim hareiheim mishtanim be'etzem teva mehusam. It is because the Oiros and Kelim are different in their very essence, in their very personality, so to speak. Be'etzem teva mehusam, the nature of their essence. And what is the difference? The teva ha'oir, because the nature of oir is hu ha'lo. It is to rise up, to raise up, upwards, to go back to the source. The teva ha'kelim, the nature of kelim hu hamshocha. It is to draw down. Let me, again, we will have more to talk about it, but I don't want you to be lost over here. Understand this principle. Teva ha'oiros is ha'alo, and teva ha'kelim is hamshoch. The oiros in our terminology means, like in our mind, there are two, in every seichel, in every idea, there are two parts. There's the principle, and there is the description. The principle is the nakuda, the principle from which that is the basis of this seichel. Let's say a simple thing: 2 times 2 equals to 4. 2 times 2 equals to 4, and 2 times 4 equals to 8, and 2 times 8 equals to 16. It's all the same principle. It's all the same principle. But the way it expresses itself is different. It's different numbers. And if you know how much 2 times 2 equals to 4, and somebody asks you how much is 2 times 4, you would still have to think, even though you know the principle. Because you have to apply the principle to a different situation. Now, okay, this is clear, right? Now, the principle is related to the essential truth. The principle is not captured in 2 times 2 or 2 times 4 or 2 times 8. That always remains in its source, the idea itself. The examples that we're taking, this applies to specific situations. The principle cannot apply to specific situations. Somebody asks you, how much is in here? He says, well, by principle, if you multiply, it will be this. That's not an answer. You have to come down to the mitzias and count it out. The principle itself stays in the source. So in this case, this is like the oires and the kelim. The principle is connected to the essence. And it always stays there. And if you want to understand the principle, you're not going to understand it by figuring out 2 times 2, 2 times 4. We have to go deeper and go to the source. That's what oires. Oires are rising a law. They're going to what's behind it, what's the real meaning of it. Kelim, on the other hand, their function and the nature of kelim is the application. So tell me what it means practically speaking. How does it express itself in my world? Even though the oires are also in my world, because the kelim are dependent on the oires. But the nature of the oir is to go higher, to go to the essence. Why is it true? Because that's the principle of whatever the principle is, however we define it. Whereas the kelim go down to express the principle on a lower level. And this is what he says here, that the nature of kelim and oires, even though 2 times 2 equals to 4, it really is one thing with the idea with this idea. As we said, 2 times 2 equals to 4, 2 times 4 equals to 8, 2 times 8 equals 16. It's all the same idea. And these kelim, so to speak, these examples illustrate the same principle. They are really one with the principle. But it's in a different direction. The movement here is to express it downwards, whereas when you apply yourself to the principle, the movement is upwards. What's the essence? What's behind it? What's the philosophical idea?
But what represents the kelim?
I'm sorry?
What represents the kelim? The midas, the sechel, what represents the kelim? And what represents the light that wants to? The ratzon, I'm just asking.
The kelim, that I give you, but right now we're talking about, this is the kelim of the oires. The kelim by which, if you want to teach somebody the principles of mathematics, you first have to give him a kelim by which to grasp it. And then, if he is smart enough, he'll pursue it further and try to understand the theory behind it. But the theory is the same, no matter what example you're giving. Because the theory goes back to the source.
So the kelim is the chokhmah, bina, the...
Well, there's an oir of chokhmah, oir in bino, oir in da. These are all oirs that are all connected to the source. We will, to such detail we'll have to wait a little later. But just to understand the principle of oiros and kelim, that oiros, their nature is law. Oiros tend to reveal and to talk about the source, where this is coming from. Kelim tend to talk about how it applies, how it functions. So they're two different natures. And being that the Kelim and the Oiros are two different natures, this is why the unity between the Kelim and the Oiros is not the same level, it's not the same perfect as the Oiros with their source. Okay?
Why doesn't it say Kelim and their source?
Kelim and their source, which are the Oiros. The Kelim unite with the Oiros, and the Oiros unite with the Etzem. The Kelim unite with the Oiros in a different way than the Oiros unite with the Etzem.
But when it says in the you Garmi or Garmoi, it means you means in that case Oiros?
The Oiros, right.
You change the...
Right. You with the Oiros, this is in the Kelim, this is the essence.
He says here, but Ayu Ichad, right? And he said, Ihu Begarmu Ichad, right? So, but then he explains that the Orot Bekelim, so it's not Ihu Begarmu, it's already Chayui Begarmu.
Right. In the Keli,
But Ihu is the Etzem with the Keli. Not with the light anymore.
okay, so the explanation is that the Ihu in both cases mean the essence. The essence of the Oir is Atzmus. The essence of the Keli is the Oir. What is the essence? Like I said, what is the essence of 2 times 2 equals to 4? That's the Oir, the idea. It's not the Etzem, it's the Oir. What is the essence of the Oir? That's the way the Etzem of the is. The Etzem of the truth. You understand?
So it's an Ihu of the light, the next Ihu.
Right. The Ihu is the light. In the Kelim, the Ihu is the light itself.
So for the Kelim, the light represents an Etzem?
Mm-hmm. That's their source.
That's their source? The Kelim are coming from the light?
The Kelim describe the light. Except that there's a difference between the way the Oiros describe the Etzem and the way the Kelim describe the Oir. The Oiros describe the Etzem and they are tending towards going back upwards of the air. Whereas the Kelim, when they describe the Oir, they grab him to take him down.
How can something that comes from something can draw the higher?
That's what the nature of Keli.
On the one hand, it depends on the Etzem. Now he's saying it draws.
That's right. But it depends on it. That's right. It depends on it, but he wants to use it, apply it. That's what the Indian for a Keli is. The idea of a Keli is, like I said before, I want to take a little water out of the basin. Then I cannot look at the water as being part of the flow, part of the ocean. I have to look at the water as it is a separate entity. And I can take it out. That's the idea of a Keli, that he can identify a little bit of the oil and say, okay, it has this form. Like 2 times 2 equals to 4. This has this form. Even though there is a much broader truth to this, which has no form.
Which is known, sorry.
No form.
So the difference between Atzilus and the other words is
Sorry? Atzilus and other words.
the concealment of the Keli, the difference between the Keli and the oilers. So Atzilus we say is like ice and water. So what's the difference between the other ones?
There
Still
the
it's ice and
Kelim,
water.
there the Kelim are not united with the oil the same way as they are united in Atzilus. They really become separate, like in our world.
But it's made of
The Kelim, the Oisius with which we are expressing our ideas are very much tangible entities. If you want to have kind of a closer grasp on the difference between one world and another, you would have to be a little patient. But for the time being, would be like, for instance, we understand let's say you have an idea. You want to have an idea on your own. You thought of something. And you have you know this idea. Once you know this idea, that means that this idea by you is in Keli. It's not something that kind of fluttering, but you actually know it. And then you want to explain it to someone else. When you want to explain it to someone else, you put it in totally different kelim than the way you think it to yourself. And I'll give you a very simple illustration of what I'm saying. Very, very simple. You want to give somebody instructions how to go from here to Crown Heights. So you tell him, you know the idea, you have to go to this street, here, turn there, turn. You're not thinking in terms, I'm going on 48th Street and I'm going on this street. You think in terms of the turns. You don't even think in terms of the names of the streets. Do you follow what I'm saying? You just see the map and you just go to the map. When you told the other one, you can't say, go here, go there, turn there. No, you have to give him the names of the streets, which is a much lower level of the Keli than the actual map. The actual map is part of the map, part of the reality. But if you're translating it to someone else, you have to give it a name, which is a much lower level. The name relates to the street much less than the actual street, than the map, than the form of it. That's really replicating the form itself. It's not like the street itself. You're not walking on the street, but you have the idea of what it looks like. So it's much closer to the reality than when you give it a name. So that's very much further away from the source, from the real thing. So we say that in Atzilus, the Oires and Kelim all represent or connect to their essence. They don't become separate Metzias. And they cannot be known externally. Like in the case, like I said in this case, you can transmit it to someone else. It can be known only within the place, like a person thinking to himself. And even really higher than that.
He said, Ihu v'chayuhi echad, Ihu v'ramuhi echad. But after we say the Garmuhi, the essence of the Garmuhi is the
Right.
Chayuhi.
Chayoi. Is the
You should say Iu Chayuhi Chad and Chayuhi v'Garmuhi Chad, right?
And the reason it says Ihu is because in the Garmoi, the Chayoi, the Oiris are the Ihu. What makes the Kelim alive? When you say, going back to our example of 2 times 2 equals to 4, what makes this idea true? What makes you say 2 times 2 equals 4? You're thinking of the mathematical principle. You're not thinking of what makes the principle true. When you think of the principle, you think what makes the principle true.
Well, principle is 1 plus 1 is 2. It's 2 plus 2 is 1, 1 plus 1, 1. Right? This is the principle. The main principle is 1 plus 1 is 2. So when it's 2 plus 2, so it's like 1, 1 plus 1, 1. What do you mean by principle?
The principle of mathematics, really, is what we call the principle of logic. In other words, if I say to you 2 times 2 equals to 4, I do not need to take 2 and 2 and show you, count them over and say that this is 4. I can give you the idea. On what basis am I giving the idea? Because it's logical.
So principle, that is the logic.
It's logical, right? Because I can prove it logically. What is the principle of logic? Okay, I'm not going there. But why do we believe on the principle of logic? This is something which is intuitive. That this world does not. There are no surprises in the world. You know what surprise means? No surprises. It works according to logic. The world in itself, there's no surprises. So if I can convince you that logically this is so, then you will know that it is so in the world. Because you know that the world does not have its own will. Like if I say logically, you probably will do this. And that doesn't prove anything because you have your free will. As much as I can figure out what you're going to do, it doesn't say that this is what you're going to do. But in the physical world, if you prove logically that this is what's going to happen, then this is what's going to happen. Because the world doesn't have its own will. It follows the rules of logic. So so that's what you're relying on. The fact that the world doesn't have its own rules. And it follows the principles of logic. So now when you say 2 times 2 equals to 4, you're not going to say, why 2 times 2 equals to 4? Because the world doesn't have its own will. That's not the level you're talking about. You understand? You're talking on the lower level, on the principle of on the logical level. Logic itself is based on that principle. Do you follow what I'm saying? This is the pshat that you go. So if you have a logic, and then you apply the logic to a specific thing, it's a 2 times 2. So this 2 times 2 does not relate to the principle of of the rules of logic. It relates to the logic. So that logic, this is the source of this statement. Logic. The source of the statement of logic is something else. Okay, so that's the pshat that the kelim, the ihu, the kelim is the oil, because the kelim comes from the oil.
That 2 plus 4 is coming from the that have a logic.
From logic, yeah.
Garmuhi v'chayuhi.
Right. But by the Galmoya, this is the ihu. This is its essence. The essence of Galmoya is this logic.
You can say that the Garmuhi, his essence chayuhi, but his through chayuhi see the ihu too.
The Chayoyi is related to the higher level, but the Galmoya is related to the Chayoyi, to the oil.
So ihu chayuhi, Garmuhi had its principle. The keli see the light. His feeling
That's right.
is coming from the light.
Mm-hmm.
And in Bria, the keli don't feel he's coming from the light.
Not in the same way, not the same unity.
It's not already called like.
That's like I said, like when you think to yourself, the form, the idea is one with the idea. The form of the idea comes from the idea directly. But when you are to explain it to someone else, they become 2 separate entities.
What becomes separate entity?
One,
What becomes separate entity?
the kelim with which you're expressing it and the idea that you're expressing are 2 separate entities. Like I said, if you give somebody directions and give him names of streets, he can follow the names of streets. He would not know the beginning whether he's going east, west, right or left. He would know the first thing. In your idea, there's east and west. You have a certain sense of direction. But if you put it into a list of names, you don't know which direction you're going. You're completely off the map, off the reality. Do you follow what I'm saying? But when you think to yourself, you're thinking on the basis of some reality. So you're connecting to the real thing. That's what he says. Atzilus is connected to the real thing. Even the kelim are connected to the real thing, to the oiris. But the kelim connected to the oiris differently than the oiris connected to the yatzim. Because the oiris, their nature is to see what the yatzim is, to rise up. The nature of the kelim is to bring it down. And therefore, this unity is not the same.
Chayuhi connect to the ihu straight. Garmuhi connect to the ihu through the chayuhi, but he is connect to the ihu, but through the chayuhi.
To the chayoy, but it's his tendency is to go down, to make an etzius.
Why wouldn't the kelim want to go back to its source, just like the light, just to go up back to the source naturally?
No, because the nature of kelim is to go down,
Even though they came from the source.
even though they come from the source. The whole idea of the kelim is to take the oil and translate it on the lower level, to make it tangible. That's the function of the kelim, to make it tangible. Like I said, in our idea, in our mind, there is the idea, but then you want to put it into words in order to make it tangible, in order to make it transmittable. And ultimately, when you think of something, you learn something, you're engaged, but ultimately you want to walk away with something. What did I learn? What do I know? The idea is nice, but what do I know? That's the way when it's in Keli. Okay? Can I entrust you with this pamphlet of mine? Yashem Echinu.